I've decided I'm gonna leave the Mayweather Sugar Ray Robinson debate alone because they're both great fighters. And what pushed me to leave it alone? I was just on Facebook chopping it up on some boxing shit as usual, and on a Riddick Bowe post, I can't remember what it was. It was a picture of Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali, and Ronnie Essett, a former middleweight world title challenger. I'm sure he fought Chris Eubanks. He might have had a couple of shots at world titles back in the 90s. He said Larry Holmes was so overrated. So overrated. And I said, wow, this guy's a professional boxer who's fought at a high level, not with great success, but he knows the ropes. And if he's saying that, it just shows how subjective this resume shit really is, and this legacy shit. It's so subjective. And he wasn't joking; he was serious. But I guess if you wanted to really scrutinize Larry Holmes's legacy, or anybody's legacy or resume, I should say, is that you could pick it apart. You could pick it apart. You could say Larry Holmes lost twice to a blown up heavyweight who was a light heavyweight, even though I thought he got robbed in both fights. Regardless, he lost to a light heavyweight twice. Larry, I'm not sure if duck is the right word, but he didn't want to fight Pinklin Thomas when Pinklin Thomas looked like he had something about him for all 5 minutes. You know what I mean? No, Pinklin was a good heavyweight at one stage when he knocked out Mike Weaver and outpointed Tim Witherspoon. Larry didn't want nothing to do with the fight. Pinklin had the WBC belt, and that's around the time near when Larry first got the IBF strap. It's a very subjective thing, you get what I'm saying? Like, people can say, oh, Larry got decked by Ronaldo Snipes and Ernie Shavers. I mean, I know Ernie's got a fearsome reputation, but he never won a title. If you look at Ernie's ledger, there's a lot of losses to not so great fighters. Ronaldo Snipes never won a title. He floored Larry Holmes. The fight was controversially stopped. The Carl the Truth Williams fight was controversial. The Tim Witherspoon fight was controversial. And I started thinking about it, and the only reason I'm picking it apart like this, I actually think Larry Holmes is a great fighter. But I'm just saying what you can do to a resume, to anybody's resume. I mean, Rocky Marciano only made about 4 defenses of the title. And he still holds the record, is it 49-0, unbeaten as far as heavyweights go. But what does that mean? What does that mean, really? I don't know. A couple of them defenses was against people like Roland Lastaza, who he struggled against, you know, and Archie Moore was an oil boy by the time Rocky got to him. So what does it mean? But there's people who swear blind that Rocky is the greatest of all time. And as Mike Tyson said, a lot of people say Ali would have beaten The Rock, but unless they actually fought in the ring, you can never truly know. Mike Tyson said that. Resumes, man, resumes. I could take Sugar Ray Robinson's resume and start picking holes in it. I could do that to Floyd's, to Tommy Hearns's. I could say, well, Tommy Hearns lost all his super fights. Yeah? Like against Hagler, against Leonard. Okay, he won the Duran fight spectacularly. But the 2 major super fights was the Leonard and the Hagler fight. And he lost both of them. He also got knocked out by Iran Barkley. He was floored by James Kinchin and barely got a split decision to win the IBF super middleweight title. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard. What is he, 4 or 5-time world champion? Well, how did he win the light heavyweight crown? He made Donnie Lalonde sweat down from 175 or whatever the light heavyweight limit was, and he made Donnie Lalonde sweat down to super middleweight because Ray had the WBC super middleweight title. Lalonde had the WBC light heavyweight title. So what Ray made, well, not what he made Lalonde do. What Lalonde subscribed to was Leonard's demands, and he sweat his body down to 168, and he was the light heavyweight champion. So basically, he defended the light heavyweight title at the super middleweight limit, and Ray won that fight. And Ray didn't even have the super middleweight title; it was the vacant super middleweight title. So he won 2 titles in one fight after he made the WBC light heavyweight champion sweat down to 168. So you can go there with that. And let's stick with Ray Leonard. The rematch with Tommy Hearns, which they gave him the decision, was an absolute farce and a joke. Tommy decked Ray twice, and how he got the decision, no one knows. Nobody knows. It was an appalling decision. An appallingly bad decision. Ray got decked by Kevin Howard on his comeback, a true journeyman in every sense of the word. He got decked by Kevin Howard. A lot of people say that he ducked Aaron Pryor and didn't want to have nothing to do with Pryor. You see, history will treat Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather very nicely. Because let me tell you this now, I remember in the 80s when a lot of boxing writers and boxing fans, they didn't think that Ray was true to the game. He's ducking Hagler, then he fought Hagler when he was past it, and he's ducking this fighter, and, he's not doing this, he doesn't fight often enough. Ray was getting all of that. He was getting all of that. But now, it wasn't like that in Sugar Ray Leonard's day, it's all hindsight. A lot of it is the rose-colored tinted glasses, so to speak. Marvin Hagler can pick at his resume. We can pick at Marvin, and he's my favorite fighter, but we can start picking at Marvin Hagler's resume. The reason I'm doing the old fighters is because a lot of times they get romanticized into legendary status, and rightly so, But if you look at Hagler as a champion, you could say his 2 most noteworthy wins, famous wins, John the Beast Mugabe and Thomas Hearns, they were both light middleweights. You could say that. When Marvin defended against Duran was just coming up from welterweight, and shit like that, and he wasn't a legitimate middleweight. And he took Hagler the distance, and Hagler didn't look good in that fight. He got a lot of stick. They said that was a very negative performance. Some people even said it was a draw, although Hagler won the fight. But some people were saying it was a draw. There was periods when Hagler was not a popular fighter amongst the press and certain sections of the fans. There was periods. You wouldn't think it now, but there was. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but Marvin used to get a lot of stick for not going up to light heavyweight and challenging Michael Spinks. He used to get stick for that. In my opinion, I don't think a champion needs to move out of his division. If he can make the weight limit comfortably, if he's disciplined to make the weight limit, he doesn't need to do that, because Marvin cleared out the division. You see, what I'm doing, I'm just picking holes in something that maybe you shouldn't pick holes in. I mean, Marvin beat Mustafa Hamsho twice, knocked him out once, knocked out Rodan, Hearns, Mugabe, Simpson, European and British champion, took out Minter, and they did criticize him the first go around against Ortafermo because they said, well, You was not really under no threat from the guy. He was far a superior athlete and technically a better boxer. Why didn't you just go for it and just take the fight the first time out? Because the fight was scored a draw. Marvin won the fight. But we're talking about an era where cliches like you have to drag the championship out of the champion's hands if you're a challenger to get his belt. That still had a lot of clout in boxing. Marvin fell foul to that ethos at the time, and Antuofermo kept his belt. I remember reading it. A lot of people said, well, he didn't push it hard enough and he got what he deserved. And that was near the period where he developed the mantra, seek and destroy. That's when Marvin developed that. What about Aaron Pryor? The great Aaron Pryor. Let me give you guys a little test here. Name somebody apart from Alexis Arguello who Aaron Pryor fought and beat. Name some other super fights he was in, apart from the 2 fights with Alexis Arguello. And let's remember, when they used to do fantasy super fight matchups from different eras, they used to match Arguello with Henry Armstrong. That's what his status and rank was at the time. But now in hindsight, I'm looking at it and I think I could pick holes in that if I wanted to pick holes in it. Now, without the box rec, I know he took the light welterweight title from a very good champion named Cervantes. I might even have pronounced that wrong or got the name wrong, but I know Cervantes was a very good champion. And after that, apart from the Aguero wins, I'm struggling a little, just a little. But in some ways, you had to be around at the time to see the buzz that he was creating and the way he was just going about his business, to see how he built that aura around him. Could you make an argument that Floyd has a better resume than Aaron Pryor? Maybe. He fought who was there in the light welterweight division at the time. And he made numerous defenses of his world light welterweight title at that period. And you can't fault a man for that. But if you look deep, there's no real names there. He only lost 1 fight. That was to Bobby Joe Young. I remember that fight. That was a weird fight. I remember when Bobby Joe floored Aaron, and he was on one knee, was he? And he put the hawk sign, I think it was the hawk sign, up some fist, pumped out some fists while he was on the floor, and the referee just counted him out. It looked like the drugs really had affected Pryor at that time really badly. You know what I mean? And let's not forget the water bottle incident against Aguero in the first fight when Panama Lewis gave him the bottle of water which allegedly had crushed up asthma tablets or respiratory tablets, because he asked one of the seconds for a water bowl. Panama Lewis asked one of the seconds for a water bowl, and when they handed him a water bottle, he said, "No, not that one. Give me the one that I mixed." And what do you mean by mixed? You're not allowed to have nothing but 100% pure water in the water bowls. There's no mix. There isn't supposed to be any mix. You know what I mean? Evander Holyfield has a great resume. Yeah. That guy fought Dwight Muhammad Cowie twice and beat him twice. The first fight was controversial. I mean, you see, this is the thing with resumes. I remember watching the first fight, and I clearly remember walking out on the street after watching it. I can't remember where I was going, and I was thinking, wow, Cowie won that fight. I really believed that. And what if Cowie did get the decision? Who knows? Could have changed the course of time. Resumes are very difficult, but the fact is, Holyfield came out with a decision and he knocked Cowie out in the rematch. He was the undisputed cruiserweight champion. He fought Riddick Bowe. He beat Tyson twice. But let's face it, um, speaking of the Bowe fights, Bowe knocked him out cold. He looked terrible when he outputted Larry Holmes. He looked terrible in that fight. Larry took him to school. Even though he outpointed him just through volume, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the shots just didn't land. Just volume punching. Against Foreman finished the fight stronger than him, and he couldn't put a 40-odd-year-old man away. I know it's no ordinary 40-odd-year-old man, and I'm saying it sarcastically, as to say I could pick this apart if I wanted to, you know. He lost to Michael Moorer, who to me was never a great heavyweight, you know. Michael Moorer really and truly had the potential to be one of the greatest light heavyweights ever. Holyfield didn't look good against Michael Moorer. He lost against Michael Moorer. I mean, he looked terrible against Bobby Chiz, Holyfield. He won the fight, though Chiz was screaming about the stoppage. He wasn't too happy. There's been a few times he didn't look good. The James Toney fight, didn't Larry Donald outpoint him? Chris Bird outpointed him. And yeah, you can say it was at the tail end of his career, but that was 9 years ago, and he's still fighting today. So can you have a 10-year tail end on your career? I don't know. In all truth, Floyd has some very nice runs of form, you know, like Genaro Hernandez. Was a good champion, everyone agrees with that. You know, and he retired him. His first defense was against Angel Manfredi, who was hot property at that time, very hot property in the game, and like he was touted. I remember he used to be touted a lot in the magazines. I didn't see him fight much at the time, being in the UK. But I always used to read about him in the Boxing News and in KO magazine and the Ring magazine, and he was a highly touted contender. And Floyd blew him away in 2 rounds. You know, 2 rounds. I mean, like Floyd beat Gregorio Vargas. And I remember when he ripped the featherweight title from Paul Hodgkinson in London. And they was touting this guy as the next Salvador Sanchez at the time. And Floyd beat him. The next fight, he knocked out Emmanuel Augustus. Very tough journeyman. And he was very hard to stop at that stage. I'm box wrecking this as I go. I'm just going to do a few resumes while I'm here, because I don't really know what criteria is to judge him by, but I'm just going to go through and say what I think. The Diego Corrales win was excellent. Was an excellent win, in my opinion. That still remains one of Floyd's standout masterpieces. Like his quickness of thought. Like there was one round where the bell just rung to start the round, and Floyd's quickness of thought, the way he got that hook in so fast, and he floored Diego and was just giving him a beating. And the way he was using his footwork in that fight was particularly impressive, you know. But what stood out for me was just the speed of thought when he dropped Corrales, and even when he snuffed Victor Ortiz. Like, you know, that's one of Floyd's strengths. He's got the speed of thought to take advantage of situations quicker than most fighters. That's one of his strengths, without a doubt. The Jesus Chavez fight, is that the guy who, was it Levander Johnson died against? It could be. That was a good performance. The Castillo fights, he got both of them by unanimous decision. In hindsight, a pair of good wins. A lot of people say he lost that fight. It's debatable. It's definitely a point of debate. No doubt about that. And that's one thing you got to definitely big up. Sugar Ray Robinson. I can't remember him getting any of those kind of decisions. It seems like every time he did win, he did win. There was no debate about it. He didn't need the judges to help him win fights. You know what I mean? I mean, even the great Joe Louis got a few gifts, like against Walcott, and I'm just running through here. I think there was maybe one or two more. You know, Ali got a few. Pacquiao's got them, and that's the only one that Floyd has. And even then, he got a unanimous decision on the scorecards, and it's all down to debate. DeMarcus Corley, that was a very good result, you know, in hindsight, to outpoint Corley. And he had to overcome getting hurt badly in that fight, you know. The Arturo Gatti, that was a showcase fight for Floyd, and he looked sensational in that fight. Sharmba Mitchell will not go down as a great fighter, but I do remember Emmanuel Stewart touting Mitchell as one of the guys who will test or beat Floyd when he fights him. And I think the insinuation was that he was ducking him, and Floyd destroyed Samba Mitchell. The Zab Judah fight, to me, it goes down as a good win. Zab is a good fighter. I've already said that. If you can go through some of my videos, I've always said Zab is a good fighter. If a little inconsistent, very good fighter. The Carlos Manuel Baldemore fight. The HBO commentary team, Manny Stewart especially, was saying that Baldemir was going to beat Floyd. You know, and Floyd won convincingly. The De La Hoya fight, again, one of his standout victories, you know. The way he overcame a lot of obstacles in that fight, and he started to pick them single shots in the mid rounds, I thought that was very impressive. The Ricky Hatton fight, a lot of people say this, a lot of people say that. What we have to realize is Hatton was a double world champion, undefeated, in 30 plus bouts. Floyd was the first to knock him out. So I'll be the first to confess that Ricky has a lot of deficiencies in his technique. But regardless of that, he was a two-time world champion. Floyd did what he had to do. He knocked him out. That's the check hook fight. The Shane Mosley fight. Like, a lot of people say that Floyd avoided Margarito. Well, Mosley destroyed Margarito. And the whole boxing world was going mad over that victory. And don't say you wasn't, because you was. Yeah? Floyd schooled Shane. He schooled him. He schooled him, basically. The Victor Ortiz fight, Floyd was winning that handily. And the fact that Victor was trying to do him some serious damage, and Floyd's blow was legal, in my opinion, there's no controversy about that fight at all. At least not from Floyd's behalf. And the Miguel Cotto fight, a lot of people will say, well, that's the first time Cotto's been legitimately defeated without the aid of catch weights or bricks in your gloves, so to speak. Like I said, I'm not going to try and find out who's the better out of Sugar Ray or Floyd, but I am going to go through Sugar Ray Robinson's resume as well and sum it up and end the video. Sugar Ray Robinson. Okay. Right. Damn, he's had so many fights. There's 3 pages to go through. He was only 5'11". I always thought Ray was 6 foot 6'1". 5'11". He always seemed taller than that. I think fighters were a little smaller them days, like light heavyweights and middleweights. I think probably them days the average height for a middleweight was probably 5'7", 5'8", because Ray used to tower above his opponents. And nowadays, I think the average middleweight is at least 5'11". I mean, Pirog, Martinez, Chavez Jr., Andy Lee, you know, I'm sure Golovkin's about 5'10", 5'11". That's the average height probably now. Marvin Hagler was only about 5'8.5". Even Sugar Ray Leonard's about 5'10". Going through the early part of his career here, these fights. The only name I recognize so far is Sammy Angot, and I'm not sure why I remember that name. He could have been a champion at some stage. Um, I've heard of Marty Servo. Fritzy Zivic, I've definitely heard of. That's the guy who used to commit a holy fouls. Fritzy Zivic was known as a dirty ass fighter. That's his claim to fame. Ray unanimously outpointed Zivic. He had his first fight with Jake LaMotta in 1943. I don't think LaMotta established his reputation as such when that first fight took place. Like, in hindsight, reading that matchup on paper when it took place then, it probably seems like a big fight. I don't think it was as big as we're thinking. I think the subsequent fights they had after probably had more bearing on their market value in terms of resume. He did, however, outpoint Henry Armstrong at welterweight. You see, there's no belts for these fights at the time, so I'm just reading of BoxRec, so it's hard for me to gauge the years that Henry Armstrong was getting shit cooking from when Ray fought him. Nevertheless of what I'm saying, he already had his first loss on his resume to Jake LaMotta before he beat Henry Armstrong. And he beat LaMotta again. They fought about 5 times. He squeezed that fight in the revenge match against him. They used to fight so many times. You see, beating Henry Armstrong and Jake LaMotta, you can't really fuck with that shit there. That's top class form. You know what I mean? Without doubt. And there he goes. He beats LaMotta again. And I think the last time they fight is where he stops him. I'm not there yet. I've got him beating Tommy Bell, who I know he beat for the welterweight crown. This just seems like a standard win the first fight. There he goes, beating Jake LaMotta again. He just fought that guy numerous of times. Beat Sammy Angot again. He fights somebody named O'Neal Bell, who is the name of a cruiserweight champion a few years back. I really don't know a lot of the names of these guys that Ray has fought here. It's not like, and it's best I not say too much on it. You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes you need a proper historian who was there, who really has studied the records of the guys that he's fought here to really get it in. Like, there you go. He beats Tommy Bell over 15 rounds for the World Welterweight Championship. There was 2 belts at stake. You see, even then had a lot of belts, like the vacant NYAC World title and the National Boxing Association World Welterweight title. But I'm not sure that both belts might have came as one package then. I'm not sure, you know what I mean? It's hard to tell if his next 3 fights were defenses. I don't recognize any of the names. But as you see, there's a 10-round decision, which would indicate that that was a non-title fight. And them days, they fought so many non-title fights, you get what I'm saying? Like, if you look at Bob Foster's record, there's so many non-title fights on there. Like, Jimmy Doyle, I know that name. And the World Welterweight title was at stake. And you see, from when he fought Tommy Bell, he had 4 fights before he fought Jimmy Doyle. And the world title is not underlined in any of them fights on the BoxRec ledger, which tells me most of them were non-title fights until he defended against Jimmy Doyle. And the same again. After the Jimmy Doyle fight, he has another 4 fights before he defends against Chuck Taylor. That's funny, man. Live J5, it's a dude I correspond with on the internet. We do music together. He's from Philly, North Philly. He made a reference to Chuck Taylor's, you know what I mean? He made a reference or the last beat he spat on, the Chuck Taylors. And I've heard the game mention something about Chuck Taylors. It's either a shoe or a sneaker manufacturer in America. Um, I've never heard of Ozzy Harris. That's a non-title fight again. Wow. It seems like about 10 or so non-title fights. I haven't heard of none of these guys before he defends against Kid Gavilan, who, you know, if you're a follower of boxing, you should have heard of. And if you haven't heard of him, that means you need to, and you say you're a hardcore fan, then you need to do more research on the game. He is famous for utilizing the bolo punch, but he didn't invent it. I keep forgetting the name of the guy, man. Like, Reef from Newark knows the guy's name, the historian. The historian from Newark, that's how I call him from there. He knows the name of the guy, and he'll correct me if he watches the video. Yeah, he defends against Kid Gavilan over 15 rounds. And again, he goes into a whole bunch of what seem to be non-title fights. And I'm not saying all these guys are bums that he's fighting, because if they were, somebody would have told me that they were. And they're obviously probably a mixture of some tough journeymen, some fringe contenders, and some contenders. You know, it's probably just a mix. He takes the vacant Pennsylvania state world middleweight title. What the fuck is that? That's not the official. It's not the official world title. There's no way it is, because in his next fight he defends against Charlie Fusari, whose name I have heard of. I've heard of Jose Bozora, who he fought. That was for the Pennsylvania belt. It was obvious that when Ray had the welterweight belt, he was testing the waters out middle with this Pennsylvania middleweight title he had. He was testing the waters at middleweight and still defending his welterweight crown. He defended that against Carl Bobo Olsen, who I don't have to box Rick. He was a welterweight champion. I knew that. He knocked Olsen out. I've got that on VHS. Bobby Dykes, never heard of him. I haven't heard of a lot of the guys, man. I think he's fought this Robert Villeman a few times. And then we get up to the stage where he knocks out Jake LaMotta, one of his most famous victories. I've heard of Holly Mims, who I think was a good fighter at that time. That was a non-title fight again, coming to the final page before he comes to Earl's Court Arena, Kensington, London, in the United Kingdom, and loses his title to Randy Turpin. That's one of the most famous victories from a British fighter ever, period. And in the next fight, he took the title back by a devastating KO. I don't remember the actual fight. I'm not that old, you know what I mean? But Ray was just determined, man. He didn't fight the whole of that fight with his usual gloss and slickness. He was just gritty, and like when he was throwing them combinations to finish it, man, he was just like, you could see he was just in the zone. I want my belt back. And he scored a TKO and took his title back. For some reason, the non-title fights are cutting down, and he defends against Bobo Olsen again. This time, it's a unanimous 15-round decision. The Rocky Graziano win. Graziano was a middleweight champion in his own right. He knocked out Tony Zell. I remember the Rocky Graziano fight. Again, I wasn't there. I don't remember at the time. I remember watching it. Graziano was a very crude fighter, but he could punch like a fucking mule. And he floored Ray. He put Ray down on one knee with a counter punch. And Ray just, I think in the next attack, man, Ray sparked him, man. I remember he was trying to get the feeling back in his legs, man. You know what I mean? He was just a KO, just a KO. I'll never forget that knockout. Never, never. And the punches were just woo. Telling you, man, telling you. After the Graziano fight, he decided to take on Joey Maxim for the light heavyweight crown. This is the first time that Ray never managed to go the whole course in a fight. He was stopped in 14 rounds. There was one round to go. And this fight took place in Yankee Stadium in the BX. I've watched that one as well. You know, I've got all the Ray's shit. And I'm remembering why I know so much of Ray's fights. It's that blue VHS tape that I bought in the 80s of Ray. Yeah, I mean, just all these big fights. I'm just remembering. That's how I remember so much of his shit without even YouTubing it. Important fights. And here's my memories of that fight. Very, very hot arena. Very hot arena. Maxim had a style where he basically just kept his gloves up and tried to walk you down, sort of thing. He didn't expand a lot of energy. And Ray's style depended on a lot of footwork, a lot of foot movement, you know, and the fact that he was moving up to light heavyweight, because there was no super middleweight division in them days. So if you wanted to move up, you just had to make that big jump. And Maxim had a huge weight advantage from what I can remember. And it was a very hot stadium. And Maxim was a very durable fighter anyway. And Ray was well ahead on points. Well ahead on points. But the heat took its toll. I remember the referee had to be taken out of the fight and replaced because it was so hot. I remember that. And by the 13th round, Ray was just ragged. The heat just took its toll. And he was sort of like falling all around the ring, just desperate. And he was still way ahead on the cards. But they pulled him out. I think either at the end of the 13th or end of the 14th. End of the 14th, either. One of them two. And that was that. That was that. He lost that fight. I mean, wow. If they've got these weights right, he only weighed in 157.5 pounds for the Maxim fight. Which is light, man. It was really light. And Maxim weighed in at 173 pounds. Was there that much of a difference? Surely that can't be right. Why would Ray weigh in so light for that fight? Wow. Shit, man. From 1955, I would hasten to say Ray was tailing off. And we wasn't really seeing the best of Ray. He was still tremendously effective, don't get me wrong. But the years obviously blunted a little something out of him, you know. More non-title fights here after the Maxim fight. He knocks out Carl Bobo Olsen. He knocks him out in 2 rounds, takes the world middleweight title, defends against Olsen again and knocks him out again. I mean, like box up Carl, boy. He lost the title to Gene Fullmer. And then he scored that spectacular KO win, which is one of the best left hooks recorded in boxing history. That left hook. The Carmen Basilio loss. A fight that a properly trained Ray would never have lost. As tough as Basilio was, you know, let's face it, it's not in Ray's league. He took the title off Ray. Ray outpointed him in the rematch. Both fights were fights of the year, according to BoxRec. He lost to Paul Pender, and that just signified effectively the end of Sugar Ray Robinson as a force. He kept fighting on. He kept fighting on until, after the Paul Pender fight, he draws with Gene Fullmer, loses a decision to him. He loses to guys like Denny Moyer. I mean, I'm assuming Denny Moyer is not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. These guys, Terry Downs, a British fighter. These are guys, I mean, couldn't lace Ray's boots in his peak years. You know, he lost to Joey Giardello, who is a very good fighter in his own right. Very good fighter on points. And there's a stat here on BoxRec that Ray was paranoid of elevators, and he walked up and down 12 floors of stairs to get to the weigh-in in the Inquirer building on the day of the fight with Giardello. Like, there's draws with guys like someone named Hernandez and Mick Leahy in Scotland, you know. Someone named Fabio Bettini drew with him over 10. I'm not even going to mention the rest of the guys. Like, he loses quite a few until the last fight with Joey Archer. So, that's Ray's resume. It's a great debate. It's a great debate. It's a great debate. That's all I'm going to say. It's a great debate. But, time periods change. Floyd is more of a businessman in terms of the way he thinks, more so than his predecessors who graced the ring. I guess you have to give him props for the fact that he managed to corner so many world titles just through boxing alone. He adopted the Money Mayweather thing and managed to make a bucket load of money for himself that he can fight when he likes. And who's to say? Because Ray didn't end up a financially rich man out of the game. If he had managed his money, or if the purses were better them days, would he have had so many non-title fights? Would he have had so many fights, period? Because Ray was trying to get out of boxing. That's why he used to do dancing and a lot of other sideline shit. He was trying to get out of boxing. He didn't want to go back in there a lot of times. It's not like today where Canelo and Chavez Jr. can earn big purses, and their resumes and their opponents at times do not quantify them purses that they're taking. It's not like today. It's not like today. This resume thing is very tricky. It's like when they was weighing up Pernell Whitaker and Floyd. I said to myself, what's the point me trying to weigh up the shoulder roll against Whitaker's amazing abilities of elusiveness and Floyd's counter-punching and Whitaker's counter-punching abilities? They're both great fighters. And I could never pick one against the other and say, yeah, I'm 100% sure my pick is going to win. You can never be 100% sure, but you get what I'm saying. Especially when the skill range from both fighters is so, not mirrored, but it's so closely contested. It's hard to say, yeah, I'm sure that Pernell Whitaker would beat Floyd and vice versa. So what I did, and I know it's going to sound a bit fucked up. I had to consider how Whitaker let drug abuse blight his life and stuff like that, and he went into spirals of depression. And Floyd's never had substance abuse problems. He's had anger issues, temper tantrums that have landed him in jail, but no one's ever seen him falling out in a club, or, you know what I mean, or he's begging for money and shit. Whether you like it or not, you have to put a lot of that down to mental strength and single-mindedness. They're them kind of traits that go hand in hand with that. There's a possibility that Floyd could have been a bit mentally stronger than Pernell Whitaker. There's just a possibility. And if you're pushing me for an answer, there it is. But it's too tight. It's too tight to actually gauge their skills. It's just too tight. How can I just say, yeah, Pernell Whitaker would have embarrassed Floyd? I, you know, what you have to realize is Floyd is very fast himself, and like he's got a great defense himself. He'll be offsetting a lot of them gifts that Whitaker utilizes on fighters. And what you got to realize is most of Whitaker's opponents just weren't as good as Floyd. And likewise with Floyd. Most of Floyd's opponents are just not as good as Pernell Whitaker. So, one way or the other, we're going to be witnessing something that we've never seen before. And there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions coming out of a fight like that. Because both men are going into territory they've never seen before. In terms of facing an opponent who can mirror their speed and defensive subtleties and offensive abilities. I remember I had to say, look, forget boxing. Forget boxing techniques to a degree. And let's study the psyche of the two fighters. You know? Like, even with Ray Robinson, you could say that there was a lot of times that Ray didn't want to box, and he did things he didn't want to do. That to a degree is not having control of your life, you know. And I appreciate that it's a different era, and you could bring the race dynamic and opportunities for an African American at the time. You can bring that into it. But Floyd has always been in control. If he's not wanted to fight, he hasn't fought. If he's wanted to fight tough opposition, he's done it. You know, even in the ring, he's almost controlled his destiny at will and made hard fights easy. I have to take that into consideration. I'm not going to give you extra points if you fought under adversity and you've lost control of the situation and you've come out of the ring broke, or you've lost a fight because you didn't get the ideal circumstances for yourself. That's down to you. That's your shit. I'm sorry, I can't give you no points for that. Just because it was a classic fight and we're saying, oh, he should have got to this. No. I have to give Floyd points for ignoring everybody saying, go left, go left, go left. And he just goes to the right. I have to give him points for that. I have to do it. I have to do it. Floyd has always found a way to win. And not only that, if Whitaker was upset about his career and decisions and he allowed that to happen to him, even though he's all right now, I'm just saying Floyd has never showed that kind of weakness. You know, and to a degree, with a sport like boxing where there's no sort of league championships and you're just relying on weighing up resumes, you have to sort of like probably weigh up things like who finished their career with the list, brain trauma and injuries and shit like that. I don't know. First thing we're told about boxing is hit and don't get hit. So you could gauge the resume when you're talking about two elite fighters who came out with the less lumps, who came out with more of their faculties. Like the Klitschko's, they've stated on many occasions that, yeah, especially Vitaly, you stated that I fight how I fight because I want to use my brain. When I finished with boxing, I need my brain with me. He stated that. So how that plays in, I don't know. And Legacy is another thing. Like with Roy Jones and Legacy, like a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Roy, retire. You're destroying your legacy." But I don't see how he can destroy his legacy. To me, Roy was the best fighter of the 90s. In my opinion, Roy was the best. And the analogy I'm going to use is the Roman Empire was once a great empire, but it fell. Does that mean it was never great? Sugar Ray Robinson, in my opinion, Sam Lankford, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Mayweather, Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, Larry Holmes, Salvador Sanchez, Roberto Duran. There's great fighters, and you know something? I don't have to rank them. I don't have to rank one against each other. I don't have to do that. You know, it's like sometimes with hip hop, Nas would be my favorite MC. Then another day it would be Redman. Then it'd be Pharoah Monch, and a lot of people now scratching their head. Pharoah Monch, what are you talking about? To me, Pharoah Monch is just a lyrical dynamo. I don't care what nobody says, man. In terms of content and delivery, don't fuck with that shit, man. You know what I mean? And nobody has him in their top 5 or top 10s. Especially on that Extinction Agenda album. It's just one of the best MCs ever. Some days, Ice Cube is my favorite. Sometimes it's Biggie. Sometimes it's Scarface, Sometimes I think about Thomas Hearns' career and like the right crosses he used to dispose people of. And you think, wow. Bob Foster. Bob Foster at light heavyweight, man. Whew. Like he just used to storm through his competition, cleared out his division, really. But I suppose people could go through Bob Foster's record and say, well, I've never heard of none of the names. But I guarantee you, he fought the top contenders of his day. I guarantee that. The reason you don't know a lot of the names is because, like I said, you need a historian to go in there, go in there on some CSI shit and know what he's talking about, you know what I'm saying? Same with Henry Armstrong. A lot of people say he's great. How many opponents can you name that he fought off the top of your head? I'm not box wrecking this. I know he fought Lou Ambers, Barney Ross, Sefrino Garcia for the middleweight title. He fought another guy named Lou, and it's bugging me that I can't get it. And he fought Ernie Roderick, a British welterweight who went the distance with him. You know what I mean? And after that, not because Henry didn't fight anybody, he fought Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm cheating there. I'm just remembering that because I just box wrecked it there. And to be honest, if you was to ask me, did he fight Sugar? I wouldn't have remembered. I know he did, but I wouldn't have remembered. And there's other names in there. But a lot of times, a lot of us, we shout, yeah, this guy was a great... And we don't even know the records. So if you don't know the records, how do you know the resumes? Look at Don Curry. A lot of people would swear blind that Ray Leonard ducked Don Curry. They would just swear blind. And Curry at his peak was a really good fighter, man. Really good fighter. I remember when Curry knocked out Milton McCrory. Unification bout. They were sharing the WBC, WBA welterweight belts between them. And Curry knocked him out in 2 rounds. That was just like devastating. I mean, Curry beat the likes of Marlon Starling. There was a stage of his career when he was the pound for pound best fighter, or they used to say he was. They used to rate him higher than Marvin Hagler in the pound for pound rating until Lloyd Hunnigan busted his bubble. In hindsight, you don't hear much people saying, yeah, well, Don Curry is one of the greatest welterweights ever. You don't hear a lot of people saying that. But at the time, he had pound for pound status. So the years and opinions, they changed the landscape. Just like the world used to be just Pangea at one stage, and then the landmass changed and shit like that. And now you have all different continents, you know what I mean? Asia, Europe, and, you know what I mean? South America, and this, that, you know what I mean? The landscape changes. Opinions change. Like, if Manny and Floyd were fighting in the 60s or 70s when All the heavyweights were getting big purses. You might see a different attitude in their fight schedules. You know what I mean? Especially in Floyd's, you might see a different attitude. And I'll tell you who's really stopped the fight are the Flomos and the Pactards. You know, I'm not gonna call myself a Flomo because I just don't want to call myself that. But I'm a Floyd fan. You know what I mean, self-confessed. And I've always said that Floyd should do whatever he can to make the fight. If he's got to give up a couple of percentage points or whatever, he should make the fight happen because he's financially secure already. So, you know what I mean? Damn. And Manny likewise, he's financially secure. You know, like if he can give up a concession to make the fight happen, he should. If he has to agree to drug testing, he should. He shouldn't be saying that he'll submit to drug testing in the build up to a fight that he's having with another fighter. That's a bit cheeky, I think, from Manny. A bit of a cheap shot. But only people like Bob Arum would allow them kind of shenanigans to go on. I mean, come on, man. How are you submitting to all of Floyd's demands when you're going to fight Marquez in the build up to fighting Marquez? What kind of shit is that? You get what I'm saying? That doesn't even sound like legitimate negotiation to me, in my opinion. Why would you say that during the build up of a fight that you're having with another opponent? It just seems weird. It just seems weird. You know, and yeah, the Flomos and the Pactards have stopped the fight going because they've been saying, yeah, well, Manny's did this, Floyd has did that, he's got nothing to prove against you and this and that. And look, you devalue yourself as a person and you think that you don't have a bearing on this shit. Well, you think Pacquiao and Floyd doesn't know that he has such loyal, fanatical supporters that they hang on both of their words. So that way, I mean, they don't have to do much to impress you or to keep you happy. They can feed you all this bullshit while negotiations stalled. And because of the tribalism and you don't want to lose the racial argument, that's what happens. You know what I mean? That's what happens. Like, you'll go on forums and websites and you'll support any weak arguments that either camp has and says, oh yeah, it's Manny's fault, it's Floyd's fault because of that, because they're this, they're that, they're this, they're that, you know? And the truth is, some of the Flomos and Pactards don't want that fight to happen because their hero is going to lose. Now, I'm a Floyd fan, but he's not my hero. If he loses, he loses. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I don't support him to that point that, wow, I'm scared if he loses. But I know there's Floyd fans who are scared, actually scared for Floyd to lose. And there's Pactards who are scared, really scared for Manny to lose. You know, and that's just pathetic. Really and truly. But in my opinion, I'm a Floyd fan. I think being able to craft out an unbeaten record like that, it's not no coincidence. There's a correlation to greatness there, in my opinion. To win 6 titles is a correlation to greatness there. To hold a CompuBox records that he has of amongst the elite fighters where he's took the least amount of punishment and he's handed out the most. You know, it's a correlation to greatness. There's just no doubt that. There's no doubt about that. You know, and he's become a victim of his own success because he doesn't get dragged into wars. Like, let's take the Corrales fight. A lot of people thought that Corrales was gonna just walk through Floyd, and that's the truth. They did. But if he had got dragged into a war, maybe got floored and Corrales marked up his face, you know, a lot of you would eulogize the win more than you currently do because he made it look relatively easy, you know. You know what I mean? You'd be eulogizing the win, saying, yeah, Floyd went for adversity, man. You know what I mean? He saw the heart of a champion. But, you know, that's just, like I say, That's you adding extra criterias. The heart of a champion. What does that mean? What does that mean? The chin of a champion. What does that mean? I mean, Andre Ward said and Carl Frost said the best chin is the chin that ain't tested. I mean, by saying the champion has got heart, yeah, you use heart if you have to use it. But if you can fight most of your bouts without it being blood, guts, and heart rendering emotional trauma, then that's what you do. It doesn't diminish Floyd's accomplishments because he's not getting them heart stopping fights. You know what I mean? It just, I mean, the stats are there on CompuBox. The stats are there. You know, that's what he does. He shuts down opponents from doing what they normally do. You know? And I'm of the mindset that I'm aware that I'm watching a legend as it happens. I don't need 20 years to go past to say, man, it was really good in Floyd's day. Nah, it's good right now. You're watching a genius at work. You're watching history. You might not know it, but that's what you're doing. And I don't have to get all nostalgic. You know, I can rate Floyd amongst the greats now, in my opinion. If he retires, not while he hasn't announced his retirement, but I'm just saying, if he was to retire like in 2 years' time or a year's time or tomorrow, I could just automatically say, yeah, that's where I'm going to place Floyd. Because his career's not over yet. Let's let it climax out. But if it plays out the way I feel it will, I'll have no problem ranking him high. Very high. Top 10 all-time great. That's just my opinion. Top 5 all-time great, in my opinion. He's that good. In saying that, I don't know who I'd rank before him or after him. Like I say, I don't want to do rank the places, but I know Floyd is way, way, way up there. I know that for sure. I know that for sure. You know, I've seen Pacquiao lose fights to Marquez and get decisions. You know what I mean? Which wasn't right at all. I've seen Morales school him in the ring. There's no way Morales could have schooled Floyd. I don't care what nobody says. As good as Morales is, he wouldn't have schooled Floyd. Pacquiao's already been knocked out twice, you know, by opponents that you couldn't even dream of saying who they were. Was one 2K battery or one of them boy that I can't remember. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And Pacquiao's approach to the drug testing thing has been far from exemplary. I mean, neither him or Marquez are getting USADA over the testing. It seems that boxing fans have got very short attention spans because nobody seems to be mentioning it. The only person who I've had a dialogue with about the fact that neither of them are submitting to testing was Carcino. We both thought the same thing, that these two guys are two of the most biggest profile athletes in our sport, and they and their camps didn't see fit to submit themselves to testing. Instead, Pacquiao's talking about he will submit to testing against Floyd, knowing full well that the events of boxing can change within one fight. What if Marquez knocks him out? What if he's suffered a really bad cut? Anything could happen. You don't do that in the build up to another fight. You know, it's been less than exemplary, man. And like I said, a lot of boxing fans have got short attention spans because it's been a few days since we've had a fighter coming up dirty. It's almost like it's not a problem again. Just a few months ago or just a few weeks back, everybody was making videos about drugs, this and that, and now it's all forgotten, you know. It's just ridiculous, you know. That's what it's like in a microwave-led culture. People forget things very quickly. They move to one news story to another news story, and they never tackle one problem that needs to be tackled. And to me, the drugs thing has to be held against Manny's resume and legacy, especially if you're going to compare him to Floyd. That has to be held against him. And look, The catchweight matches I can give and take because Margarito, Cotto, De La Hoya, they didn't have to take the fights. They did it to themselves, yeah. If they made the choice to go in the ring, emaciated and weight weakened and got beaten, you did it to yourself. I got no problem with that. But Sugar Ray Robinson and Floyd, I don't know. It's a highly contentious debate. Highly contentious. If it was a middleweight, I think Robinson would damage him. If it was a welterweight, it evens itself up. It evens itself up. You could split hairs in picking that one. And sometimes we give a bit too much credit to fighters. Yeah, he took on all comers. Yeah, but he lost. Like, let's forget when Ray was losing to guys like Danny Moyer and Mick Leahy. Forget that stage there. But we can go to fights like Carmen Basilio, where he lost to Carmen, and he shouldn't have lost that fight. He didn't come in top shape, you know, and he lost. I don't see Carmen Basilio beating Floyd. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see that happening. Could maybe give him a tough fight, but I don't see him beating him. And if Floyd's at his best, he'd make it look piss easy. I'm just going to be honest with you against Carmen Basilio. One thing about Floyd, if he ain't right, he don't fight. I know a lot of you are going to hold that against his legacy. He should go in regardless if he's not sure if he's going to win. No, the man's meticulous. The man's meticulous. And we can't chastise him for that. You know? If Ray chose to come in out of shape, just because the fight was a classic, we can't give him props for that. It's an L. It's an L. We're talking about resumes, yeah? It's an L. He lost that fight clearly. He won the rematch, but he lost the fight clearly. Now, if we start another debate talking about classic fights, cool. Cool. Then maybe Floyd wouldn't get as much props from me about classic fights because he doesn't have many because his style doesn't allow for that. He shuts people down. With Floyd, it's more classic performances than classic fights. You know what I'm saying? That's what this shit is based on. I want to debate one point with blood boxing. You did state that Roy is ruining his legacy by fighting on. And he's not doing very well fighting. Let's face it, Roy's looking like fucking doo-doo. But if Roy's ruining his legacy, didn't Ray Robinson ruin his legacy by fighting on in the last 5 or 8 years when he was losing to guys like Mick Leahy and Terry Downs and Joey Archer and drawing with some Mexican road sweeper, as Nigel Benn used to call them, you know what I mean? So, in a way, there is room to knock Ray's legacy. Like a lot of people are now. They're saying that this period of Roy's career is cancelling out the 90s. And I disagree with that. I agree with Carcino that Roy's legacy is set from what he's done. The first middleweight since Fitzsimmons to win the heavyweight crown. Roy's done his shit, man. Roy's done his shit. James Toney, Bernard Hopkins, John Ruiz, Mike McCallum, set in stone. As far as I'm concerned, set in stone. Just my opinion. I'm not saying you're contradicting yourself, but the thing is, when you reign up various legacies, it's hard to keep track of the dynamics of everything. That's all I want to say in that. And I agree with you that Floyd hasn't cleaned out no divisions. But that's because he's just been winning individual titles at different weights as well. There's an argument to argue that. I think Floyd has seen a lot of punchy old fighters, broke, fucked up, miserable, and, you know what I mean, and just busted up. And I think that's influenced him to say, okay, rather than just defending and accumulating punishment, I'll fight clever. I'll just win titles at different weights, maybe defend a couple of times, and pick my fights and build my legacy by winning titles at different weights rather than just consistent defenses. Because, yeah, that might be great for us as fight fans, and yeah, you can hold that against Floyd, I suppose. But let me tell you this now: fighting tough man after skilled opponent, elite level, it doesn't do your health any good. I don't care what fight you're talking about. It's just no good for your health. There's only so much time you can go through the ringer. There's just only so much. I do agree with 78 Fight News that Floyd's PR sucks, and I have said that maybe if Floyd had a big dog like Don King rolling with him, but he'd have to keep someone checking Don. You know what I mean? Because Don will just rob your money. Don will just rob the money. Yeah, like he could have probably did better in negotiations with the Pacquiao fight, and maybe exposing the practices of Pacquiao and Arum in terms of drug testing and money and shit like that. He also could have helped with a lot of the debris and projectiles that the media have hurled at Floyd, and at times he's been unprepared for it because I don't think even he's realized how twisted and vicious that portions of the media can be. So there's no doubt about that. I want to big up Vids06, very knowledgeable young man, you know what I mean? Great vids, great insight. Love the way that you study the past. A lot of the young are kind of ignorant to the past when it comes to sport and music. Great vids. The only thing that I'm going to go in on you is to say Canelo's L is coming soon, and he's not that good, trust me. Reef from Newark made a very solid and strong points. Couldn't really fault none of what he said. Rilo Jenkins, I'm still a bit in Rilo Jenkins' camp thinking, how do I weigh up these different resumes and legacies? You know, what's the criteria? Do we have to stipulate certain guidelines and stipulations that we all stick by and we say, okay, foot speed, this, that, legacy, opponent, strength for this, da, 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 da. And we can use that as a barometer to gauge other fighters in the future, perhaps. Perhaps. I actually look forward to people coming at me. And it's nice when people support what you say. But I'm looking forward to more of the people who don't agree. As long as it's in a respectful way. I love that shit, you know what I mean? Have a good topic and air it out, you know what I mean? Just air it out on that kind of level. So I'm just going to say peace, and you know what I mean? And that's it. We're gone.